Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be factoring trinomials with a not equal to 1 and you will be able to do 2.6. Today students will be able to factor trinomials with leading coefficients not equal to 1. But before we do that, we're going to apply something that is called grouping. What is grouping? Grouping just means that you look at the polynomial that you have and then you group them, and you group because they have a factor in common but not with the other ones. However, the other group have a different factor in common. And so let's group them. We'll group them into two groups. And what is the greatest common factor for ax plus bx? Well, I only see x and I start dividing. Ax divided by x is a. Bx divided by x is b. On the other side, the greatest common factor for these two terms is y, because both have y. I start dividing. Ay divided by y is a. By divided by y is b. And something that I want you to notice is that these two results are the same. So we're going to write them as one of the factors and only write it one time. The other ones, the ones that are the greatest common factors outside, we're going to write them on a separate factor. So x plus y. Now if you think about it, that's all it's asking to do. But if you think about it, x times a is ax, x times b is bx, and then the double distributive property, the second one will be y times a is ay, and y times b is by. Okay, so let's do another example of grouping before we go into factoring. And so we're going to be grouping this. And so I noticed that for the numbers, we can have a number that goes into both 2 and 5. For x, we only have with the smallest exponent, so it's x. And for a, we only have it in this one, so we cannot include it in the greatest common factor. Okay, so that's my first greatest common factor. I start dividing. 2x squared divided by x is 2x. 5 divided by 1 is 5. A, we don't have it, so we just bring it. And x divided by x is 1. When we multiply 1 by anything, it's just that number. On the other side, I noticed that the first one is a negative, so we're going to put negative in here. 2 and 5, nothing for the number. X and a, nothing, because we don't have it in both. But for y, we include it in here, okay? And so we start dividing. The negative divided by negative is positive. 2 divided by 1 is 2. X, y divided by y is just x because the y's cancel. Again, negative divided by negative is positive. 5 divided by 1 is 5. And ay divided by y, the y cancel, but the a doesn't. And so I decided to use colors so that you can see the difference, or actually how they are the same in here. We have that only once. 2x plus 5y, no, plus 5a. And the other one will come from the ones that we took out. So it's x minus y will be my other factor. That's all you have to do. Those are my two factors. They're a little too apart, but that's okay. But remember, why do we have to write this only once? Because this x times 2x is the same as doing it like this. And then negative y times each one of this one is like when we do it down below. Okay, the double distributive property. By writing it once, we already included 2 times. Now that we practice grouping and that we know how to factor with the diamond from the previous lesson, we can go ahead and apply that in here because we're going to be needing both of those. Okay, so if you remember in the previous lesson, we learned that we put the last term on top and then the middle term in the bottom, and then we look for two factors that multiply equals that number, but added equals that number. However, we did not have a leading coefficient different than 1. It's always x squared, which meant that the coefficient was a 1. This time we have a 2 in here. When that happens, we need to multiply A times C and put it up here. So 2 times 3 is 6. And the middle term still goes in here. Now we're looking for two factors that multiply equals 6 and added equals 5. Added because it's positive, okay? So it will be 2 times 3. Before we just open the parentheses and we put x plus 2, x plus 3. But in this case, because we're doing extra steps, we're going to be using grouping. And what do? We just bring this down, 2x squared, sorry. And we bring this down as 3. However, for the middle term, we're going to be substituting with this. And because this middle term has x, we're going to include plus 2x plus 3x. And then we do grouping. You just saw how we did that right now. And those are the steps that we're going to continue to do. Again, what do? First step is to multiply 2 times 3 and put it up here. Get the middle term coefficient. Find the two factors, and those two factors replace this. Notice how we have the same thing. These are equivalent because 2x squared, 2x squared. 5x, well, they're right here. The 2x and the 3x is 5x and 3. Now we do grouping, which is what we did in the intro of this lesson. And we start looking for the greatest common factor. In this case, it will be 2x and start dividing. 2x squared divided by 2x is x. 2x divided by 2x is 1. Anything divided by itself is always 1. Now for the other one, the greatest common factor for both is 3. And I start dividing. 3x divided by 3 is x. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Whoops, and I was meant to put this in blue. We put the one that looks exactly the same only once, x plus 1. And we put the greatest common factors together. So 2x plus 3. 2x plus 3. And now those are my two factors. If you want to check to make sure that you have the right answer, you can just do the double distributive property, combine like terms, and you should get the same trinomial that they gave us. Let's do it just to make sure. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is 2x. Then we go with the second. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times 1 is 3. We combine like terms. And we get 2x squared. 2x plus 3x is 5x. And 3. If you notice, we did get the same thing. So that means that our two factors are correct. In number 2, again, a is not 1. So we multiply a times c. And we get negative 90. 6 times negative 15 is negative 90. And we get negative 1 for the middle term. What are two factors that gives us negative 90, but when subtracted is negative 1? That's a big number. So what I recommend is that you look for two numbers. Again, the biggest number has to be negative. So you can do a list of all the ones that are 90, or look for ones that are without a pattern. You can maybe think of the two factors of 90 that are one space difference. Okay, so if you're not sure and you want to go with the big list, it will be 2 times 45. The biggest one is negative, so we will give the negative to the 45. 3 times negative 30. 4, well, since the rule for 4 is that if it's divisible by 2 and this gives me an even number, then it is divisible by 4. But because this is not an even number, then it's not divisible by 4. 5, 90 divided by 5, it will be negative 18. for the divisibility of 6. And if you want to know more about divisibility rules, to know really fast the factors, let me know and I can create a video for you. So for 6, the rule says that if it's divisible by both 2 and 3, then it's divisible by 6. And I already saw that 6 times 15 is 90, so that means that in here we'll have negative 15. And you can also use your calculator and start dividing by those numbers. By 7 is not divisible. By 8, if it wasn't divisible by 4, then it's not divisible by 8. By 9, 9 times 10 will be 90, so negative 10 is the bigger one. And guess what? You got to the right number, because when you subtract them and keep the greater sign, you end up with negative 1. So the two factors will be 9 and negative 10. And I know that the process is lengthy, but again, you can help yourself with the calculator. So we rewrite the first and last terms. So 6x squared. Then the middle term, it's this 9 minus 10. So positive 9x, negative 10x is my negative x. And bring down the negative 15. We do grouping. The greatest common factor for 6x squared and 9x is 3x. 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. 9x divided by 3x is plus 3. For this one, because both have negative, we're going to include the negative in here. And for 10 and 15 will be 5. So negative 10x divided by negative 5 is 2x. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. We check that these are the same and write it only once, 2x plus 3. And the ones that are outside become the other factor. So 3x minus 5. That's all it's asking for. But if you want to check, 3x times 2x is x squared. And you can just do it mentally. Negative 5 times positive 3 is negative 15. But for the middle term, we do the happy face. So negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. 3x times 3 is 9x. And when we have negative 10x and 9x, that's negative 1x. And for number 3, again, the first step is to multiply a times c. What is a times c? Remember that a is always with x squared, b is always with x, and c is always the constant. So 4 times 20 is 80. And the middle term is negative 18. We're looking for two factors that multiply equals positive 18. Again, because this is positive, that means that both of them will be negative. Okay, and so 80. Some of you already saw the number. I'm not going to say it because I want to give a chance for those who can't see it easily, and that's okay. You might have to do this, but that's okay. It doesn't matter as long as you get to the answer. And so we just start multiplying. Both will be negative. Negative 2 times negative 40 is 80. Negative, can it be divided by 3? No, because this added doesn't give me a multiple of 3. So by 4, yes, because if v was divided by 2 and this is an even number, that means that we just divide that by 2. And 80 divided by 4 is 20. Then is it divisible by 5? Yes. 5 goes into 80 16 times. Is it divisible by 6? No, because it has to be divided by 2 and 3, and we don't have the 3 in there. Is it divisible by 9? No, it follows the same similar rule than 3. Divisible by 10? Yes. And the answer is negative 8. Together, when we add them, that gives us negative 18. So those are the factors, negative 10 and negative 8. Why did I skip 8 in here? And for 8, the rule is that if it's divisible by both 2 and 4, it's divisible by 8. Both of them, okay? Okay, so now the first term, we copy it the way it is. The middle term is replaced by this one, so negative 10x and negative 8x. And the last term, we just copy it the way it is. And now we're able to do grouping. We get the greatest common factor for both. And so in this case, it will be 2x. 2x and start dividing. 4x squared divided by 2x is 2x. Negative 10x divided by 2x is negative 5, because x divided by x cancels. The greatest common factor in here is, we're going to put negative because the first one has a negative. The biggest number that can go into both 8 and 20 is 4. This one doesn't have a variable, that's why I don't include x in here. And start dividing. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is 2, and bring down the x. Positive divided by negative is negative. 20 divided by 4 is 5. If you can see, these are exactly the same, so that means that we're on the right path, and we write it only once. And the greatest common factor will create the other factor. So it's 2x minus 4. Again, a super quick check. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. But for the middle term, it's a combination of inside and outside from FOIL. So negative 4 times 2x is negative 8x. 2x times negative 5 is negative 10x. And negative 8 and negative 10x will be negative 18x. Again, a times c. So 3 times negative 14 is negative. 3 times 4 is 12 and carry 1. 3 times 1 is 3 and 1 is 4. So negative 42. The middle term is negative 1. That's a little easier because it's a smaller number. And what are two numbers that multiply equals negative 42 but subtracted equals negative 1? But again, if you're not sure, you can do the list. Since this is negative, that means that one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. And the biggest one is negative, okay? So what are two numbers that multiply equals 42? So it's 2 times 21. The bigger one is 21. That's not it. 3 times 14, when we subtract them, is not equals to 1. And the negative will be the 14. Can it be divided by 4? No, because this is not even. 5, no. 6, yes, because it's divided by, if it was divided by 2 and also by 3, then it's divisible by 6. So 6 times what equals 42? 6 times 7. And the bigger one is 7, so that's the negative one. So my two factors will be positive 6 and negative 7. The first term stays the same. The middle term is replaced by 6x and negative 7x. And the last term stays the same. We group them. The greatest common factor for both of these is 3x. And so 3x squared divided by 3x is x. 6x divided by 3x is positive 2, because 6 divided by 3 is 2, and x divided by x cancels. In here, we're going to put the negative because the first one is negative. And I noticed that 7 goes into both. We open parentheses and start dividing. Negative 7x divided by negative 7 is just x. Negative divided by negative is positive, and 14 divided by 7 is 2. I noticed that these are the same and write it only once. And the greatest common factors, we put them as the other factor. As you can see, I'm going a little fast. Quick check. 3x times x is 3x squared. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. But for the middle term, negative 7 times x is negative 7x. 3x times 2 is 6x. When we subtract them, because they are different signs, subtract and leave the greater sign. So negative 7x and 6x is negative x. So it is the right factors. With this, we're done with this lesson. If you can please give us a thumbs up, subscribe around here. This is the link to the entire unit. Here will be the next lesson, and now you're able to do 2.6 and have fun.